For the last 300 or so years, the legend of Oak Island has captivated the minds of the most daring explorers, but none of them have been able to find the famous treasure that is said to have been lost there. The legend continues today, and even modern explorers are still discovering mysterious artifacts on the island. They might be yet to find the treasure of Captain Kidd, but the things they've discovered tell us they might be closer than ever. In today's video, we will be going through 10 of the most fascinating discoveries ever made on the mysterious Oak Island. Sit tight, because the last artifact on this list will blow your mind. The modern quest begins. Many insist that this treasure does not exist, and that it is merely a figment of the imagination. But over the years, explorers have taken it seriously enough to spend their time and risk their lives to uncover the secrets of the island. After all, the great Franklin Roosevelt once belonged to a group that sponsored explorers to the island. In 2005, it was announced that brothers Rick and Marty Lagina of Michigan had purchased 50% of Oak Island. The brothers were modern explorers who wanted to document their journey in hopefully discovering the long-lost treasure on the island. They documented their search in the documentary, The Curse of Oak Island, and here are the fantastic things they discovered. Chain. There are many strange theories about Oak Island. This is not surprising because it is one of the strangest spots on Earth. But this theory about the island is particularly disturbing. The theory says that after the treasure was buried, some of the slaves who were used in digging the money pit were chained and buried alive deep underground. It is said that this was done for two purposes. The first was to make sure the vengeful spirit of the slaves stayed around the guard the treasure from would-be thieves. The second was to make sure no one else but the owners of the treasure knew where it was hidden. If the slaves were allowed to go free, they could have escaped at some point in the future and led thieves back to steal the treasure. But since dead men's tongues tell no tales, the treasure would be safe through their death. This theory sounds cuckoo, but would it sound so insane if we told you that Ricky and Marty found huge chains that could have been used to chain slaves on the island? Because that is precisely what they found. What do you think of that theory now that there is some evidence that it is plausible? The granite stone covered with symbols. If you know about the story of Oak Island, you'd know that the treasure is rumored to be hidden in a so-called money pit. People believe the wealth was buried in this pit because of how loose it is compared to other parts of the island. Additionally, when the pit was first discovered, it looked like someone had recently buried something there because of how easy it was to pull apart. When Ricky and Marty first got to the island, they almost immediately got to work digging the money pit. After a few days of digging, they discovered a granite stone. This was not just any granite stone. It was covered in symbols that only men could have carved. Yet the stone was buried 90 feet beneath the ground. That is at least a little bit peculiar. What makes matters even more intriguing is that no one knows what the signs on the granite mean. It could be a map, it could be a message, and it could just be random scribblings. There is no way to know. Coconut fibers. Finding coconut fibers beneath the ground on an island is not much of a big deal. But here is what makes these fibers a big deal to anyone who's studied the mystery of Oak Island extensively. The first is that the fibers were found at depths of around 60 feet. Yes, coconut roots go deep, but do they go that deep? But that was not the only sketchy thing. One more mysterious thing about these fibers was that the nearest coconut trees were 1,500 miles away. So how did these fibers get so deep? And how come they got so deep around the money pit? One audacious theory is that the people who hid the treasure used the fibers to lower their money into the hole. What do you think about that theory? Bone fragments. There have been many stories of men dying while searching for treasures on Oak Island. For better or for worse, this has been proven to be fact, not fiction. When Ricky and Marty dug the money pit, they found bone fragments. These fragments may have belonged to earlier explorers who fell victim to the curse of the island, or they might have belonged to the early men who dug the money pit and hid the treasure there. In any case, Ricky and Marty had the bone fragments tested, and it turns out that they belonged to people of European and Middle Eastern ancestry. Spooky. Ancient manuscript. Some people have said that what is hidden in Oak Island is not treasure, but a collection of Shakespeare's lost manuscripts that were authored by the real author of Shakespeare's plays. They say that this real author was Francis Bacon, and the hidden scripts were definitive proof that Bacon authored Shakespeare's scripts. That is a strange theory for sure, but would it still be strange if you learnt that after drilling 153 feet underground, some explorers found parchments that may have been manuscripts? What do you think? After that, Ricky and Marty also discovered small pieces of parchment with leather binding near the money pit. Roman sword. In 2015, a fisherman reportedly pulled out a genuine 2,000 years old Roman sword from the waters of Oak Island. This discovery threatened to upend everything we know about Oak Island's history. It would have turned the world of treasure seeking upside down if it was true. However, it was merely a hoax. The sword in question was just a replica and not the real deal. What do you think would have happened if the sword was an actual original? Knights Templar coin. Some theories argue that the treasure on the island belongs to the Knights Templar, a group of legendary knights who were wealthy and powerful beyond measure. In the 13th century, members of the order went underground after they started facing persecution from the political order of the day. Some members that went underground were said to have made their way to Oak Island to bury their vast wealth. That is an incredible theory, but the discovery of an actual Knight Templar coin on the island by Ricky and Marty makes the theory an interesting one to think about. What do you think? A small lead cross. Another piece of evidence that proves that the Knight Templar theory isn't completely bonkers is the discovery of a small Knight Templar cross by Ricky and Marty. The cross was dated to the 13th century, so it was not planted in the area. This solidifies the Knights Templar theory. Treasure chest hinge. Ricky and Marty may not have discovered treasure, but it seems they might have discovered a part of what used to hold the treasure. Both explorers discovered a huge hinge with drill holes in it. According to experts, the hinge came from the 17th century. The exciting thing about this hinge is that it was the sort of hinge regularly used for treasure chests in those days. Jeweled brooch. One theory about the island suggests that the treasure has already been discovered and stolen by the very first explorers to reach the area. People who believe this theory argue that the first people to discover the money pit found the treasure and fled with it. Then they publicized the existence of the island to not draw attention to themselves. That way, if the true owners of the treasure were still alive, they would be confused about what group eventually found the treasure. This theory is a strange one, because it is impossible to hide evidence of such wealth. If the first explorers had found the treasure, they would certainly have enriched themselves, wouldn't they? However, people who believe that theory say that the first explorers simply hid the treasure again and did not use it. This theory was never taken seriously, but perhaps new evidence should change our minds. One of the first things Ricky and Marty discovered when they went to Oak Island was a jeweled brooch around the area where the first explorers lived. This was an authentic brooch. Explorers would surely not arrive to dig for treasure while wearing jewelry. So where was the brooch from? Some have said the brooch was part of the treasure that the first explorers discovered. They say the brooch probably fell off the pile when the treasure was being moved. That is an incredible theory, but what do you think? If you are interested about the mystery of Oak Island, you need to check out our complete video about it on the channel. There are still hundreds of ancient wonders, mystery stories we are willing to uncover on Mystery Unity. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe so you don't miss them. See you in the next video.